Welcome to On Topic Retro, or should I say On Topic Modern, as this is a special bonus episode of On Topic Retro, where I've chosen to break the rules this time, and maybe more times in the future, depending on if anything kind of scratches that itch that I just have to talk about that's a new game, because I don't get to do that very often. Uh, and tonight, we're going to talk about a very special game, the one and only Ghost of Tsushima. And while I'm doing that, I will have joining me a very special guest, Jon Bassi. How are you
Hey,
doing,
good
man?
evening. What's going on? I'm doing well. How are you?
Fantastic. We were going to have a couple other guys join us, but I think they had some things pop up. So tonight you just get the sultry sounds of Jon Bassi and I, and we'll try to keep it on topic and entertaining with just the two of us. We'll see how that goes.
Sounds good.
And as normal, we'll break the game down front to back, starting with our experiences with the game, which ought to be pretty fresh on the mind since this is a relatively new game and we both have just played it. In fact, you kind of just whipped right through it, didn't you?
Yeah, yeah. I played it over the last month or so. I kind of flew through this one.
Well, I'll let you go ahead. You can get started.
Cool,
Let's
man.
hear your experiences with the game.
Yeah, sure. So I played this on the PS5. I got the director's cut that they had released. I had recently just gotten my PS5 in April, and it was sort of a perfect storm. I was looking for this meaty open world game to play, and I heard really good things about it. I had some buddies who've played through it and really enjoyed it, and I was looking just to see if anybody had it on sale, and just by happenstance, I found it on sale at Best Buy. So I swung over there. They had one copy, picked it up, brought it home, threw it in, and immediately just taken back by it. It's such a gorgeous game. The setting, everything. I know we're going to get into all the details, but um, everything from the integrated controller experience that they had on PS5 to the visuals to the gameplay. Everything about this one is just such a top notch experience. Um, if anyone's looking for an open world game and you have a PlayStation and have access to this, like, absolutely recommend it. Um, I played this to completion, mostly completion. I'd say I got the platinum trophy. I went all the way. Played through the Icky Island DLC that was part of the director's cut. And man, some open world games for sure, they don't respect your time. Looking at you, Assassin's Creed. Uh, but this game, man, even the side missions, and I'd say most of them, that just how they built into the main story and everything, it's just so incredible. And I loved every second of it. I couldn't stop playing it as soon as I started.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you played it on PS5 because you'll be able to break that down a little bit more. I played it on PS4, so I didn't have the awesome haptic feedback controller experience, and because I'm sure there was some pretty cool stuff
Yeah.
integrated into that. But I mean, I've seen the game played on PS5, and it does look just like a notch better than PS4. But even if you have a PS4, only don't shy away because it's still a beautiful game on PS4. Uh, but yeah, I had a very similar time with the game. Found my copy, excuse me, on Black Friday of, I believe it was the year before. No, wait a minute. When did this game came out in 2020?
2020. Yeah.
So maybe I got it last year. So maybe I didn't have it as long as I thought. But picked it up on Black Friday. Stewed around on it a little bit. I think I started it in February or late January of this year, and was just kind of looking for something different to play. I've been playing my Switch primarily for at least the last couple of years. Haven't really touched my PS4 a whole lot, just for a handful of games that I've just wanted to try. I guess I haven't had anything really that has made me gravitate towards it in a while. So I heard good things about this game. Had some buddies recommend it, and so I finally had it in my hands, and it hooked me. Like I was telling you before that we got started. I think I played through the first act in 2 days. Like the majority of it, I didn't 100% this game, but like I didn't shy away from any side quests. Played the game similar to how I played Breath of the Wild, where basically if I ran across it or was in somewhat proximity, I would just go check it out. And I don't know that the map doesn't feel quite as big as Breath of the Wild. Maybe with all three parts together, it might be, but it has
Yeah,
that
that's a
similar
good
feel.
question. It does.
It has that similar feel where it's not just jam packed with things, which is fine because it doesn't have to be. Like there's so much about just wandering around and looking at things, just with how good the game looks. I don't need there to be a bunch of towns and like just random filler things. They do a good job. There's a mob, on the road all the time. You can, if you're looking for combat, things like that. But yeah, no, the game just like grabs you, like the game mechanics, the graphics, just how the story rolls out. This is a book. I mean, it's
It really
amazing.
is.
Uh, and yeah, it didn't take me very long. I played. I think it took me a little bit longer than you to beat, just because I took a break from it for a little bit to play something else. But as soon as I was done with that, I hopped right back in, and it felt like I never stopped playing. So that says something too. A lot of games you'll quit if you take a break. You're lost. You're totally lost when you come back. This game felt like I never quit. I just picked up the controller. The combat just fell right back into motion and just carried
Mhm.
on. So that says something about a game when you can do that. It's not overly complicated. Where some of these like if you're playing Dark Souls, like you have to like get in the mindset and get ready and
Yes.
prepare for that.
Yeah, there's definitely
Compared to
some timing,
yeah,
needed for some of the parries and everything, but depending on what difficulty you played it on, you definitely have
yeah,
some wiggle room there. It's not too punishing, but still pretty challenging.
no, yeah. This isn't Sekiro. This is
Yeah,
the
exactly.
other samurai game. But yeah, so experiences out of the way, I guess we'll go ahead and start to break down the game itself. Uh, I will give kind of like a warning per se that we're not going to shy away from spoiling the story. So if uh, if you want to just hear about the game mechanics, I'll try to put a timestamp in for when we talk strictly about the game mechanics, and you can kind of skip the story part if you want. Because I highly recommend, if you haven't played the game, not to get the story spoiled too much, because there's a lot of cool stuff that happens in between. Uh, it takes quite a bit of twists and turns through the whole game. So I will definitely try to do that for you guys and leave a timestamp so you can skip it. But before we get to story, we're going to talk a little bit about the game's development and just a general overview of the game. It was released on July 17, 2020, not too long ago. I'm used to talking about games that are like 20, 30 years old. This one's 2 years old, not even 2 years old yet. Developed by Sucker Punch Productions, which gives us games like Sly Cooper and Infamous. They've pretty much been PlayStation. I don't know if it's a PlayStation owned uh, company or if it's
They
just
are
where they've.
now. I don't know if they always were, but
Yeah,
I'm
I don't
pretty
know if
sure
they
that Sucker
always
Punch
were.
is a PlayStation studio now.
Okay, I didn't look that up beforehand. I wasn't really that uh, informed about Sucker Punch before I uh, played this game. I hadn't really thought about him a whole lot. I think I played a little bit of Infamous on PS3 when I got my PS3. I think it was one of the PlayStation Plus games one time,
Hmm.
and it was all right. it just it wasn't what I was playing at the time. So, and I never played any of the Sly Cooper games. I didn't have a PS2 growing up, so I missed those. And then I was kind of looking back through their back catalog, and the game that I would have played out of all these is Rocket Robot on Wheels. So that was on the N64, which might be a game that a lot of you have played, or it might be a game that none of you played. I seem to find a random group of people that know this game, and then I'll find other groups that have no idea what I'm talking about. I know Dan shares a love for Rocket Robot on Wheels, so that's we connect there. But
Yeah, that was a rental back in the day for
oh
sure.
yeah, it's a fun one. I mean, they definitely have their formula like packed down like from the beginning. Like they've been making open world like collecting puzzle type games or like adventure games from the start, and you definitely see it kind of evolve as they go on, uh, and just how much time and love is put into this game. Like reading about all the things that they did to make sure that the game came across as it did. There's a lot of work there. The From what I read, the same this team is the same team that did Infamous, and they're wanting to do like another open world project. And they loved how the idea of players making choices in Infamous like kind of drove the game. So they wanted to continue on that same kind of idea for their next game. And they apparently considered like several ideas for this next game, but the one that really kind of hit home was a story set in feudal Japan. But from what I could read, they had like either they want to do a pirate game or Three Musketeers, or they even mentioned that they wanted to do a game possibly about the Scottish outlaw Rob Roy McGregor, which I've never heard of.
Neither have I. That would be
My,
pretty cool though.
yeah,
I can see the similarities to like
yeah.
Scotland and like the island of Tsushima, right? That's almost like
Well, yeah, and all these stories are
visualize
about
that.
like, yeah, they're all about like liberating or, uh, invaders type
Yep.
situations. So yeah, I could totally see it, and I'm glad they stuck with feudal Japan because like I find the game very interesting. I mean, a lot of people that play games seem to kind of gravitate towards Japan because it's kind of like the birthplace of a lot of the types of games that we like to play. Um, so it's kind of neat to see, uh, it's fictional history, but just it's very well put together to where it seems like you could have grabbed this out of a history book. Like
Yeah. Very
there's enough,
believable with
yeah, there's
everything they've
enough
put together.
there that yeah, that you could have easily, if somebody didn't know and I told them, and they played this game, they would think it was a historical account. They did a very good job of, portraying that. And then again, what I was reading, they kind of dialed in on a theme that they wanted and decided they wanted to go with the Mongol invasion of 1274, and then everything else just kind of fell into place from there, and that's how we got the basis for what we've been playing. And as I was saying, kind of some of the care and handling of the game development, they brought in cultural experts to make sure that everything came across like correctly and it was all time period specific and correct, so that there wasn't any kind of like craziness going on. But I mean, I feel like if I took a trip and back in time and went to 1274, this is what I would see. Like that's how good they did. Uh, from what I could tell, the only difference, like the one thing that I noticed that they talked about was different from the Japanese localization of the game, was that the haiku as a poem doesn't really come across as well in Japan.
Hmm.
So they use the word waka, which is Japanese for poetry, and I'm not sure which dialect because I know there's a few different uh, dialects for Japanese. Uh, but for the one side quest there, where you create the haikus by experiencing the area that you're in, or the kind of going through the environment.
Yep.
So, but other than that, the localization was pretty close. So I just thought that was kind of interesting that from being a kid, we learned haikus were Japanese poems, but I guess it
Right.
doesn't have the same meaning to them for or whatnot. I could fully understand what they were get to at that, but I can see where if it's a cultural thing that they would want to make the change, so it kind of hits home with them as well.
Sure.
Uh, and that's pretty much it. I mean, they put all the time and effort into creating a very authentic experience with the game and the gameplay, which we'll get to a little bit later. But first, we're going to talk about a fictional historical account. Some of the events of the story happened, and some of them are not. And like I said, they just do such a good job at blending, taking a historical account and kind of putting their own touch or their own flavor to it, and changing some things to make it more interesting, I guess. So I'm going to run through just like a brief piece of each part of the story, and then we can kind of like just talk about how we experienced it and what we thought about the story. So, like, what'd you think with the opening sequence of the game, and like where it was taking you from there, and how you felt about it?
I mean, immediately as you start that game, right? It's like you're already at a 10, basically, right? You're like, oh boy, like things are going down. Like buckle up, like you're in for a wild ride. And whenever, especially for these open world type of games, that the first opening sequence is going to teach you like tutorialize, right? It's going to basic movements, maybe some combat stuff, but very very simplistic sort of scenario that you find yourself in. Um, and I thought that this game, Ghost of Tsushima, was just superb with what it did. Right, you're starting on the island, the Mongols are there, right? You're like, oh boy, here we go. Um, the samurai are outnumbered, right? You're like, oh no. And like, obviously this is a story about the samurai, so you're feeling for them already, like, oh, what's going to happen? I wasn't familiar with the story prior to playing through this, but you can kind of see the writing on the wall, right? It's not looking good for the samurai guys, and rightfully so. It doesn't go well for them. But even right at the start, when they start to develop Jin Sakai as sort of the main protagonist, um, you start to feel for him immediately, right? That it's you're not really sure who the uncle is. You find out eventually, right? It's your uncle, but obviously he's the leader, and you've got some
Yep.
familial tie to him. You're like, I wasn't sure if he was the dad or not, but I think you find out pretty quickly. Obviously, it's not. Um, but yeah, they get slaughtered, man, and it's brutal. You're walking through this beach that's just red, right? The sand is red as you're
Yeah.
trying to navigate here, and it's just like, oh my god, it's you're like, what have I signed up for? Like, let me figure out how I'm going to play this for another 40 hours, right? Like, where's the
Yeah.
story going to take us?
Yeah. And I mean, right off the beginning, they start to drill in the importance of the natural code and like the way of
Yeah,
the samurai. Like everything is about honor, uh, especially to the uncle who's a lord of a house, and he's basically taken Jin in, and he's trying to teach him like, hey, this is what you're going to be as a samurai. You need to follow all these rules, and live by honor, and that's all he knows. And like throughout the story, you kind of start to see like things being chipped
yeah,
away, and like he understands that you know there's a time and place for honor, but you can't always win every battle that way. And like he's trying to turn the tides on things, but like it's pretty crazy, like how they drill that in right at the beginning. Like everything you do, like
yeah,
he has a little story or like tells you different things. And like you said, right off the bat, they hit the beach, the battle's on. Like I don't even think it's maybe like 20 minutes into the game, and you're getting into the battle, and you kind of you get to meet the main protagonist of the game, or the antagonist. Well,
Yep.
both.
What yeah, what a great villain, right?
Yes.
Somebody you love to hate. And that's how you know a villain is top notch, right? When you're just like, oh, like, but what is he gonna do next? Like, you know what I mean? You can
Oh yeah.
almost read his movements, but then but not. He'll surprise you from time to time. He's so quick and he's so witty, and he's got these samurai figured out. Man,
And I
he's
mean,
awesome.
you really kind of get, I mean, especially from like people our age and even uh, maybe a little bit younger than us, like have watched the movie Mulan, and like the Mongols are in that movie, and like you kind of
Yep.
like build your idea of how the Mongols were through media. We learned about them in school, but like that was quite a while ago. Like I didn't remember a lot of the details of what happened with the invasion through there. They kind of just like kind of swept through that whole area,
Hmm.
not only Japan but like through China and
Yeah.
a lot of Asia, and they were just known for being ruthless. Like they had no rules. Uh, they would loot and pillage, and like, and this game is does a pretty good depiction of that. Like he's a great bad guy just because, like you said, he keeps you on your toes. You don't know what you're going to expect from the story next because you don't know what he's capable of doing throughout the whole story, and he
Yes.
just kind of gets meaner and nastier as it goes.
Yeah, and they really drive that home, especially with your points before, John, about like the uncle being bound to honor and how predictable his movements are, and how the
Yep.
Mongols have figured that out, and how they're using that against him. Um, and then over time, as Jin sort of figures out, hey, we have our one path which is bound by honor, or we have this alternative path which strays from the tradition and from that honor, but it's the only way, right?
Yep. And I mean, right off the bat, I mean, like a lot of these types of games, you've they throw you in and you learn a little bit about the combat, and then you end up facing uh oh, what's his name? Uh it's Koten Khan, who is
Yep.
the main bad guy that we've been talking about. You end up facing him pretty early on. Like you're storming your way through the stronghold at the beginning from the beach, and like the way the scene is being depicted, like everyone around you just like getting picked off. Like
Yeah,
you start out in a
everyone's
pretty
dead.
good sized group, and then like people just start vanishing as you're making your way through the stronghold. You get to the bridge, and it's your first boss battle basically. And thinking back at it now, like I kind of wonder if, I don't know if that is beatable or not. Like,
The part where we're in spoiler territory now, right?
yes,
Okay. um the part where you're trying to get your uncle back, you figured out where he is, or even
yeah,
before that?
no, before that, like right at the beginning, whenever you're fighting him on the bridge, like the first time you meet him, he's captured your
Oh,
uncle.
okay, yeah, he's captured your uncle, right?
He's
Yeah, I
captured
don't
your
know.
uncle.
I got my butt kicked
I
pretty
did
quick.
too, but like,
Yeah.
I wonder now, like after playing through the whole game, if you go back and like,
If you're good enough, could you just
yeah,
end the game right there?
if you're good enough, can you parry, and like, because you can still parry, like
Yeah.
that. You don't have all of your skills, but you still have the necessary skills. Like he has a life bar, and it you can get. I think I got it like a quarter of the way down before I just got demolished, but it's because I didn't know how to dodge
Do
or
anything. Yeah,
yeah, do anything. You
exactly.
haven't learned it yet, so it's one of the things I was kind of wondering about. Because at first, like I was like, this must be just like one of the generals or something, and then
Yeah,
you
yeah. You're
find out
still not
he's
really
the
sure if he is
yeah
like the guy, right?
yeah, and then
But
you just get wiped, and you're like, okay, this is the main bad guy, and this is
yeah,
like the skirmish.
exactly, exactly. And even before then, right? Like, because you've got the scene where they get massacred on the beach, right? And then
Yep.
you think everyone's dead, but surprise, Jin's alive, and he's been saved by this. You come to find out, like Yuna, another main character in the story, right? You got to get all your gear back, and then you go do that battle on the bridge, and
Oh yeah, I forgot. I thought the battle on the bridge happened first, and she finds him.
Yeah, and
off the
I
bridge.
I just think in terms of just the story grabbing you too, it's like you really start to feel for Jin, right? Like you got your ass kicked, everybody you know is dead, and then you try to go save your uncle, and you get your ass kicked again. Um, that sucks.
Yeah,
And you're feeling for this guy. He's at the lowest of the lows with only, a thief and sort of somebody he wouldn't have really had a relationship, it seemed like, before all this, to kind of
yeah,
pull
it's
him out of the
somebody.
gutter and
Yeah,
move
somebody he
on.
wouldn't associate because he was a lord of his house as well,
Yeah.
being the surviving heir to it or whatever. But yeah, so he meets Yuna, who's a thief, and she's kind of looking for her brother. They get kind of separated during the attack or whatever, or the invasion, and you find out that the Mongols have taken him, which is another thing. I really like all of the extra side quest characters that they throw in here that you end up recruiting throughout the game.
Yeah.
Like they have a lot of interesting story that I'm not even 100% sure that I made it through all of their, like, to the end of all their stories.
They're
But
they're all so good. I'd say all of them but one were really, really, really good. I, the monk. Did you do any of the monk missions?
I did some of the monk missions, but I didn't finish the monk mission.
Yeah, his his chain of stories was somewhat unforgettable, but all the other ones were so good, and they, they progressed over time. Right, you couldn't go and do them all right away. As you unlocked
Yeah.
more pieces of the story, more pieces of the map, more
Yep.
missions showed up aligned to those characters, which continued on their mini
I
stories,
think
which fed into the larger narrative. It's just everything is
everything's tied
so
together, and it's,
well done.
yeah, they put a bow on it really nicely. And I think you can only play so many of their missions per act.
Yep.
And I think I completed all the ones from the first act, and I think I made it most of the way through the second act. And then I had some more things I needed to play, so I was trying to push through and get. So I think I kind of left some of them behind, but uh, yeah. So Yuna, who we were talking about, the thief, she kind of finds him and patches him up, like you said, and then he kind of feels like he owes her, so like he's kind of sticking around with her,
Hmm.
and she's how he learns, you know, the essential things that he needs to do differently that aren't part of the samurai code in
Yeah.
order to kind of defeat the Mongols, because like you said, they know their every move. They've already defeated all of them. So he has to learn how to kind of like surprise them and do something they're not expecting, which is where the game gets really interesting, uh, in the fact that you kind of wonder, like at least I did when I'm playing it and I'm using the skills that she teaches you. I was like, is this going to have a negative effect on the story? Like, is this going to change the story in a way? And you come to find out it doesn't really change the story a whole lot, but there are some little things, like if you progress so far using the like stealth attacks,
Hmm.
you'll unlock like cutscenes that are backstory to where the uncle is telling him about maintaining honor.
Yep.
Like, so you're like, I'm kind of like, it's kind of like slowly going to the dark side, almost like a Star Wars reference.
Yep, exactly.
That's how
Those
they try to make
cutscenes
you
were
feel.
so
Yeah.
great. I thought they were placed so wonderfully in the story. It just gave you just enough to help build that character up.
Yep. I mean, you just feel like after you've went a little ways, it's like you can't go back now. Like, this is the only way that you can play the game. You start using all of them, uh, to the point where like some of the decisions that Jin has to make later on that majorly impact the story are like those very things. Like, he kind of loses himself and just kind of almost becomes a Mongol at some point. In the
Yeah.
game, you kind of see that transition, and he has to pay for it. So yes, so I kind of outlined some of the people that he meets, like Lady Masako, which is the woman samurai. Uh, she is the lord of her house because I think her husband has passed, and like she has
Yeah,
some
got killed at the
kids.
beach.
Got
Yeah,
killed
he
at the
was part of the
beach.
samurai at the
Yep.
beach.
Yep.
Her family got massacred, so she's out to hunt and figure out who did it,
And then
who's
you
done my
have,
family wrong.
yes, and then you have Ruzo, which is like his childhood friend that you
Yep.
find out, and now he's like a mercenary type of guy,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
he's
he's
part
like
of the
leader of
Straw
the Ronin.
Hats. Yeah,
The
the
Straw
Ronin
Hats.
Straw
I
Hats.
thought that was such a great name.
Yes, it is. And then like after a certain period of time, like you find a straw hat,
Yeah, you do.
so,
You're like, ah, it's
so
like
you look
Ronin
just
straw
like him.
hat.
Yep.
I'll put it on.
So yes, I mean it just there's so many good characters.
Yeah.
The
And the
trying to think of the mentor guy.
Sensei Ishikawa with
Yes.
the archer, the master archer.
Yep. That's
Is
one that I didn't finish. I didn't finish
uh
his story either, and I
that was
didn't
I thought
know.
that was the best one.
Yeah, I think I got to the point where you finally confront her, but I don't
All
think
right.
I've seen how it played out. So I might have to go back and finish that one.
Yeah, I think you only have 2 or 3 more missions to play of that one. It's worth it. It's a really good one. So that one, yeah, that he's trying to track down his former student who he thinks has and it appears to have betrayed.
Join, yeah,
Yeah,
join the
yeah, betrayed
Mongols.
them and joined the Mongols. Is now
It's
teaching
teaching.
them the art
Yep.
of Japanese archery.
I mean, they even go to enough detail in there where they're, how he finds that out is like there's the Japanese arrows mixed in with the Mongol arrows, and like he's like, oh, she's teaching them how to use, our arrows and make our arrows, and how to make our shots and everything, and just all the clues that lead you in that direction. And I kind of had a feeling that one has a little bit of a twist, but I never, you know, I almost I should have continued on that one. That was the one that felt the most interesting to me.
Yeah, I mean,
Uh,
you saw it as it played out, so
yeah,
even that story is not as straightforward as simple as it seems. Just like everything else in this game, right? You're
yep.
sort of questioning, like, okay, like, really is the bad guy? What is this guy not telling me about it? Because you get little pieces of that backstory as you do each mission, and you find out a little bit more and more of the truth, which you continue
Oh
to
yeah.
question right up until the end.
Well, I mean, even some of just the side missions that aren't even associated to these characters, like you'll find a excuse me, you'll find like a guy that was uh his family got attacked and he ran, you know, and then feels bad about it afterwards and has Jin go try to find his family, and whenever he does, they're gone,
Yeah,
and then he has to live with the fact that he ran, he didn't do anything.
yeah,
He was, and there was one where like a woman stealing food from the Mongols, and then you find out that like she wasn't, she was actually taking food from their people and just saying that she was taking it from the from the Mongols just to
yeah.
make sure she could eat. Like, there's all these different stories that uh, are things that I have to imagine like during that time are definitely things that would have been going through people's minds. I mean,
Yeah,
it's all out chaos,
people are just trying to survive, man.
Yeah, just surviving in
Limited
there.
resources and just trying to scrape by.
And then uh, we talked a little bit about the monk, which I don't. You learn. I don't think. Do you meet him in the first act or the second act?
He's an act two. He's an act two character, I think.
Okay. Do you meet Kenji in Act One, or is he also Act Two?
No, I think you meet Kenji in Act One because I think he helps to save Taka. Is that
You are
right?
correct. Yeah, because he's the one that gets you into the stronghold because you have to hide in the barrels.
Yeah, you hide in the sake
Yeah,
barrels.
yeah, no,
He smuggles you in.
yeah. So Kenji is my favorite character, I think, in the whole game. Like he's hilarious
He is
every
funny.
time.
Definitely comic relief for sure.
Yeah, every time every time you come across a weird mission, you find out that it's Kenji doing like some weird stuff, and
Yeah,
you have to fix it.
yeah. He shows up in the Icky Island expansion too, and for
Oh,
one of the
nice.
side missions, and you're like, oh, Kenji. Yeah, what the
Yeah,
heck, man? You're back,
yeah.
causing havoc
There's
again.
there was one where like he sold the Mongols his finest, and it was like the seawater or whatever. He's like
Yeah,
traded it out, and he's like, "You didn't think they'd find out?" He's like, "I did, but not as fast as they did."
yeah,
He's like needs him to save him. Oh yeah, he's always like every time you talk to him, he's like, "I thought you'd learned by now," and he's like, "I'm trying," but
yeah,
it's always some funny deal. I like they even make mention later. There's another part later in the game where you have to like sneak into a place, and he's like, "You always seem to get me to get into these tight places to hide or whatever.
yeah,
Squeeze me
yeah,
into a barrel." Oh man, yeah, Kenji's good. I liked he was probably my favorite character just for the comedy relief, but uh, I definitely liked all the side quest stuff that was going on at once. And then, like you said, you finally get to meet Taka. You know, you save him, and then he makes you a very important piece that helps you traverse the world. It starts
yes,
opening up some more of the open worldness of the game because it's you can't really do much climbing. Like I thought this was going to be more like where you could climb on stuff, kind of like Breath of the
yeah.
Wild.
There's very specific areas where you have to climb. Like you
Yes,
can't. It's not a Breath of the Wild where you can just climb
but it's
anything.
yeah, but it's yeah. I was gonna say it's more set up kind of like Horizon, where like you have
Yeah,
clutch points where you can like see on pieces, and you know that's where you go, or Uncharted
yeah.
type climbing.
Which I think definitely have a benefit, right? Because it's almost like it's scripted the way that it wants you to
Yes,
platform there. Because
it's definitely leading you.
yeah, and it flows too, right? If you get the grappling hook to a hold to a jump, like you can move through those sections like very fluidly, and if it feels good when you're starting to do that
Yeah,
platforming stuff.
yeah, it definitely does. Uh, there's like a few points where you're like you're swinging from like platform or place to place using the grappling hook, and it all feels natural. So they definitely do a good job. And we can kind of talk a little bit about the ghost as well, because by the time you're at the end of the first act, the story has kind of spread throughout the land about the ghost, and you are the ghost. Like you kind of start taking on that persona and like accepting it a little bit by the end of the first act.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Like you run into people and they find out you're the ghost. And they're like, "You're not the ghost. You're not 10 feet tall with red eyes and horns, or you know what I
Yeah,
mean?" Like, how could you be the ghost?
yeah.
Um, but
And
yeah,
then as you get further in the game, people are you start to gain that reputation, and they find out you're the because you gain an ability that basically shows them that you're the ghost. And then from that point on, like everybody's scared of you, and like you'll kill one guy, and then everyone just starts like falling over and backpedaling, and you definitely get some
yes,
cool stuff that goes on with as the story
yeah.
progresses,
You
and you have
definitely get to a point where most of the combat you feel very overpowered.
yes, which is the nice part of the game. Like so, some games you just don't ever get that feeling. Like this one, you get so many tools and so many skills, and it's kind of weird because they went like total opposite of a lot of games that are in this same feel. You basically get one weapon for the whole game. Like you
Yeah,
can get different skins for it. You can get like
yeah, and it's all
you can
cosmetic.
upgrade it. It's all cosmetic, but you can upgrade it. There's
Yeah,
ways to do that,
true.
but you're not like finding weapons and switching out or do anything. You have the same weapons throughout the whole game, and you just
Yeah,
kind of learn how to use them in different ways. You can gain skills, uh, which is kind of refreshing. Like you kind of get bogged down. It's kind of like the Borderlands effect or Diablo. Like you're just constantly trying to find the next piece of gear that's just slightly better than,
yeah,
than what you
yeah,
have.
exactly.
And
Yeah,
then
you
before
could.
you know it, you're paying more attention to that, and you're not paying attention to the game as much. Or I felt like this was the perfect way to do this. Where like the sword meant something. Like
Yeah,
it's an ornamental piece, and like
yeah, it's your
it was his
family's
father.
sword. It's
Yeah,
your
it's your
clan's
family's
sword.
sword, your clan's sword, and he want he finally gets a hold of it, and like he's using it. So
Yeah, exactly. Which is amazing. You draw the contrast to something I'll call out Assassin's Creed again, but like in Valhalla, the first weapon you get is your dad's your dead dad's axe, and then like 2 seconds later you find something that's better. You're like, I want to use my dad's axe. Like, come on now.
Yeah, yeah, and it's obsolete after like 2 battles.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, that's definitely one of the things I wanted to talk about was just like how nice it was to have the same weapon set through the whole game and like not have to worry about that. Like you're not worried about having a weapon that makes you better. You get better by playing the game. It
Yep.
kind of has that old school feel to it where you're not just doing more damage because you picked up a better weapon. You're just naturally getting better at the game. Like the combat starts feeling more smooth, and like uh, you're using like your throwing skills at the right time, and like you're learning how to
Yep.
dodge and do all the things. And it's just kind of a nice break from that other kind of weapon mechanics. So let's see. Talk a little bit about Act Two, where you're trying to storm the castle to save your uncle. Is like kind of like the main. Is it or no? Act Two is he already saved his uncle.
Yeah. Yeah. You see the end of Act 1, you need the grappling hook to get into the
That's
castle
right.
to save your uncle. And that's sort of the climax of Act 1. You've now saved your uncle. He's
That's
free.
right.
And now let's
You're
figure
set
out
up.
how we fight the Mongols type of thing.
Yep. Yeah. So in Act Two, you're basically uh, doing some of the extra side quests to help out the people you're trying to recruit because
Yep.
it's kind of like a mechanic to the game is that you want to recruit the allies so that they join you in battle at the end of the act. It's kind of like
Yep.
goes from act to act.
Exactly. So I think the first side quests of those side characters we listed off are mandatory, and then like the rest, like 8 or 9 of them, are optional if you wanted to. But you need to do that first 1 or 2 to make sure that they'll be at
Which
the
I'd be kind
castle.
of
I think.
curious to play the game without getting any of them to see if they don't show up because
Yeah, that's actually a good question because I
I
think they
did
technically
enough.
are. Are they?
They make it seem like they're optional. Like
I think you're right. I think they're silver quests, not
yeah,
gold like mandatory ones.
yeah, and that's what I mean. Like the whole
You
time,
might be right.
like the way the story plays out is like they make it sound like you can choose whether you want to uh, bring them on board to help you. Recruit them is the word they're using. So uh, I'd be kind of curious now to like try to do a quick playthrough of the first act and just not talk to them and see
Yeah,
see if
see
you
what
can move on.
happens. Yeah.
Yeah, see if they don't show up. Uh, yeah, so you're in the second act, you're basically trying to recruit everybody to do what you think is going to be the big battle at the end of the second act, and you also have to try to get word out to get the Shogun to arrive is one of the main quests, I
Yep.
believe. Um, Obtaining your family's armor is one of the quests, the main
Yes.
quests, which is also really cool because you get introduced to another character that is like you can get a really good feel that is basically like his mom
Yeah.
without being his
Definitely
mom. It
like
was
his
his
second
caregiver.
mother, right?
Yeah, it was his
Especially
caregiver
you
as a
learn that
child.
his mother had passed when he was like 10 or something like that, right? So he had a
Yeah,
lot of formative years where this caretaker sort of stepped in as that role.
that was kind of like a sad part of the story because
Oh,
you're
yeah.
not expecting any of that. Like you're just doing all these things and helping her out, and she's the one that kind of teaches you the way of like the poisons and things, and
Yeah.
then it just kind of slowly gets depressing, and you're like, man,
It,
I don't know if I want to
it,
finish this side quest.
yeah, exactly. Like where it's heading.
Yeah,
Um, and you find out some interesting facts about her and your father as
yeah,
part of that.
yep,
Um, and yeah, like you said, like you sort of learn the art of poison and that kind of stuff. You get a cool little blowgun at one
yeah.
point with that, uh, which I didn't use all that much, but
I I use the mine occasionally. I thought it was kind of funny the second type of poison that you get that makes them
oh, the
the
hallucination one,
rage, yeah, that
yeah,
makes them like get
the
real
berserker,
angry. Yep.
yeah.
Uh,
But
I
yeah,
liked
that was
using that one.
that was pretty cool. The poison was uneventful. It might as well just shot him with an arrow. But yeah, that
Yeah.
quest kind of ends on a very somber tone. Kind of sad. I don't want to spoil too bad, but yeah, it's a sad one.
And then I think there's one more main quest type objective that you have to do, which leads to
Yes, it's the recruitment of the former revolters, the Yarakawa, I think Yarakawa clan,
yes,
who previously tried to revolt against your family,
yep,
and you have that bad blood history, but you have to prove to them that you're worthy to like partner up and take down the Mongols. I think because you need more
yes.
people for your army.
Mm-hmm. And then towards the end of the second act is where like you really start getting since you've saved your uncle and he's starting to trying to influence your actions again. He actually wants to adopt you, uh, which was part of getting the Shogun involved. Was also trying to get permission to allow your uncle to adopt you, which was
Yeah,
kind of a weird deal, but and it doesn't. It ends up going totally awry after
that was
a
going to say.
little
Yeah,
bit,
you
but
would have been the leader of the island of Tsushima after
yeah,
if you're able to clear out the Mongols. But oh my
basically,
gosh, that one line, I know we were messaging about it in Discord, but man, when he finally gets to it and is like, you must you know denounce your ways of that you've learned from this thief,
yeah.
and
Denounce the
join me
ghost.
back the honorable path of the samurai. And he goes, I am not your son, I am the ghost. And you're like,
Yep.
what? Like, that was
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, and I mean your uncle starts, right before that, your uncle finds out that you've been using poison,
Yeah,
because you're using it on the battleground, and like uh, the way that you infiltrate that fortress is that you sneak in and you swap out all their booze with poison.
yeah,
Basically,
yeah. And they all they
poison all
all
their
they all
booze.
die.
Yeah, they all
Yeah,
die.
because you find out your uncle is just going to throw bodies at the problem,
Yeah,
and like, it's sort of, you realize it's a futile effort and everyone's going to die. So like,
yeah,
this
you kind
is
of
again the
make
only
it a little
way.
ways, in, and like they have to camp for the night or whatever, and he's sees what his uncle's plan is just sacrifice all the people that it takes. He throws them all into that bridge without second thought, and then they just wipe that whole bridge out.
Yeah,
And that's whenever you're at the halt, and they have to kind of like game plan, and they're going to try to go around and take the castle, but that's whenever you sneak in and take care of business. And then you know that leads to the the final battle of that
yep,
act is where you take out your best friend from your childhood,
yes.
basically.
Which is a cool another set of side
It
quests
is.
too. The duels that
Yeah.
with the Ronin, the Straw Hat
Yeah.
Ronin, the five of them or whatever that are around. Those are pretty fun.
Oh yeah. So yeah, and that's also part of what I was talking about, where he finds himself in a really hard place, and he's really not much better than the Mongols at this point. He's using the exact same kind of tactics that they would use against him, if they knew about it. And then, by the time you get to Act 3, you realize that he basically just taught them how to do what he was
Yeah,
doing.
yeah. Now
And
they're
kind of,
using the poison against your own people,
yeah,
and was
which is
that the
kind of,
right thing to do?
yeah, which is kind of crazy. Like, I definitely wasn't expecting that. And then apparently he's like a superhuman because he gets shot and then and then survives. He's like,
Yeah,
it's just poison. Who cares? Like kills everyone else instantly. Maybe they just didn't have the dosing right, like all
yeah.
the
Who
way
knows?
down
Maybe it
yet.
was a little bit weaker or
A little
something.
bit
Yeah.
weaker, yeah.
And he's like, I mean, he got thrown off a bridge. He survived like being slaughtered at the beach. He's
Oh
invincible.
wait, we have to go back and talk. I forgot your horse.
Oh no!
We've missed the
Yes.
horse through the whole conversation. Like at the beginning, what did you name your horse?
Kage, Shadow.
Okay, I named mine Nobu,
Okay. Was that
and
Cloud or something? I think.
yeah, I think it was Cloud
Yeah.
Nobu, and yeah, you like kind of, I don't know. There's something about the horses in video games. Like I don't know if it goes
Oh
back
yeah,
to
every
like
time you do a
Witcher.
mission, you're there with your horse, you're petting your horse.
Yeah,
He's your boy.
every
You're
time you
sleeping on your horse,
yeah,
like
every
you're with
time you
him.
complete a mission, they do like a little cutscene at in the village you rescued or whatever you just cleared out, and like yeah, you're sleeping on your horse, or your horse is waking you up. You're sleeping on the ground. You're just constantly with your horse, and like he actually is a good way of traveling the map. You know, actually use him quite a
Yeah,
bit when you're in between areas where there's not a good warp point to it. He's good for exploring,
yeah, yeah, definitely.
and yeah, you kind of develop that relationship with him, and then ends up getting killed at the end of the second
Yeah,
act.
right at the start of Act 3, right?
Yep,
Get shot by your own people as you're trying to
escape out.
escape, right? Yeah, because you say, I am the ghost. Like, I'm not going to
Yeah,
denounce my friends that have got me this far, and so you get locked up. But who comes to the rescue, right? Even before your horse gets shot, it's your boy.
yep.
What's it?
Good old
Yeah,
Kenji.
Kenji to the rescue, MVP.
That's
Oh
right.
man,
Yeah, no, it's sad. I mean, it's one of those few moments in the like I felt more sad for the horse dying than I did uh the mom figure. I can't remember what her name was. Uh, where is it? Anyway, that whole cutscene with her was. I would think I was more sad for the horse.
yeah,
So that brings us to Act 3, and Act 3 is kind of like a weird jumble of things because there's not really a whole lot of main quest to like prepare you to get into the end of the game. There's like a little bit of you can go back and excuse me, do some of the side quests. I mean, it's pretty straightforward from there. There's not a whole lot of exploring on that last little bit.
yeah. There really isn't. And even throughout the way, some of the things that you had to do in terms of like the side optional stuff is like clear out the Mongol camps. And I think that third area has the least of them all, maybe like 10 or something like that.
Yeah,
With I
something.
think the prior one had like 17. So there's just like a lot less to do, and I think a lot of the main story missions you end up clearing those out anyway. Um, but yeah, throughout the whole third act, right? You are the ghost. You have fully embraced that persona, and
Yep.
it's sort of the dichotomy of trying to save your homeland and also not trying to or trying to evade your uncle, right, who's sort of after you.
Yeah, you've basically created a second problem for yourself
Yeah,
by not choosing the way of the samurai. But I mean, he has it in his head that he can't complete his assignment without doing what he's doing. He's convinced himself that this is the only way. There's no going back. And I think part of him is probably has in his mind that he won't ever be able to go back.
yeah,
That
yeah,
his
he's left
uncle's
that.
never going to see him the same way, no matter what he says, because of the things that he's done, and he's probably just kind of owning the things that he's done, especially after the second act when you learn that he's basically given the Mongols the poison,
Yep.
and you just have to he's owning it.
Yeah.
So so yeah, by the time you get to Act 3, you're basically you have to reunite with Yuna, find your way towards the next stronghold, which they're held up in a port, and he's wanting to use the boats, right,
Yeah. Yeah, right, because like they're in the port because they're going to take the poison that you've like told the Mongols about
to the
to the
mainland.
mainland. And
Yep.
yeah, so now it's like, oh, okay, now if we're going to make a move, it's now. They're about to ruin everything, ruin the entire like mainland.
Yeah,
So
which part of this part of this story is slightly related to the actual accounts. So like the main thing that defeated the Mongols in reality was a set of tropical storms that came through there and just like basically wiped them out.
yeah,
all their all their ships kind of got caught up in the storm, and it really helped them. And that's kind of like the idea here is they're like they know that the storm is coming, and like Jin's talking about it, and he's like, "This is when we have to plan our attack. We have to catch them off guard and let the storm kind of help us out."
Yep.
And that kind of leads to the main battle with Koten. Oh, what is it? Khan,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
he
Koten Khan, I think.
Koten Khan, yeah. And so, what did you think about that battle? That was kind of a interesting
It
way
was.
to do it. It wasn't what I was expecting it to be.
No, no. I thought it was. It's it started out the way I thought it was going to be, sort of like a one-on-one showdown.
Yeah, it
Like
was a duel.
it was a duel. It was very similar, albeit he was pretty. He was difficult. Um, but then I think when you get him down to like 25% health or something like that, and he bails. He sort of runs
Yep.
away from you, and you have to do this like chase scene where you could kind of fight some of the the common soldiers. You could kind of chase him. You do a mix just to get by.
Well, I think you've
Um,
been shot with the poison again too at some point during that
yeah,
battle.
yeah, I think you are right. So it's just like it's just utter madness, right? Like this is the end, but it's um, you're giving it all. Like you don't know if your Jin's even going to make it out of this one.
Yeah, and but yeah, and there was a certain time like where uh, you're in the middle of the fight, and like he becomes just like a normal enemy. Like you can knock
Yeah,
him over, and like
yeah.
you're
I
basic.
was fighting him at one point, and I was like, I didn't even realize that was him.
Yeah, like because at certain points during the main battle, like he's calling in reinforcements, and like guys are coming in and helping you, and you have to like take care of the archers that are around there because
Yep.
they're trying to shoot at you and stuff. But yeah, they kind of like they do a good job at transitioning the feel of the first time you fight him, he's unbeatable, and then the second time you're fighting him, as like you progress, like he becomes just like you're so powerful that he just kind of becomes another enemy that's there. In fact, I remember using like uh the ghost skill, like where you hit the two sticks down,
Yep.
and I just like annihilated him, like he was
Oh,
toast.
that's awesome. Yeah, if I didn't time it out right. I was as I entered that fight, I was like, oh man, I just used the ghost like special. I
Yeah,
should have saved that.
but yeah, so it does a good job of like kind of transferring the power, like you feel it as you're doing it,
That's cool.
and uh, so yeah, that kind of leads to the last little bit of the story here, at least in the main part of the game. If you feel like talking about the DLC afterwards a little bit, you can. That's fine. But I didn't play it, so I won't have any input on it. But so after you defeat Khan, it kind of like scatters all of his forces, and you kind of have a slight bit of fresh air, right afterwards, but it doesn't last long because then you've got to kind of confront your uncle after all these things because all those crimes are still in place
Yep.
and they still want to arrest him. So that leads to a basically another duel, like
Yep.
very shortly after. Like you don't really have a whole lot of time to reflect on the win, and they're just like, well, your uncle wants to see you. You need to go talk to him. Which right off the bat, you know what that means.
Yep.
Which comes down to how I believe this is the only two. I think there's only the two endings to the game,
Yep.
from what I read. So you basically comes down like you can play the whole game however you want, and it all comes down to that last fight of how your ending is, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought it was really neat. Right. It's obviously you do the duel, you beating your uncle, and he gives you this as expected. He's bleeding out. He's like, give me the honorable death and kill me as a samurai, or spare me, right? Are the two choices
Yep,
that you're
gives
given.
you the ultimatum.
Yeah, yeah, let me live and sit in this bath of of knowing my former nephew, almost son, is now the ghost, and like living this honorable life, or kill me. You know, I killed him.
I let him go.
Did you?
I did.
How was your ending?
So basically, supposedly it's the good ending because you spared him. But You just kind of wake up in the house or whatever, and you find out that he's kind of on the run now.
Yeah, same.
So yeah, I don't even know what the
Uh,
big difference
you
was.
you get as far as I read, you get a different set of armor. Like you get, I think the armor I got was like red
Was it
and
for like a
blue.
new game plus or?
Um, yeah, I mean you can go and use it in New Game Plus, I think, if you want. But I think the only thing it does is like a
So I guess
slightly different cutscene.
yeah, just
Obviously,
a
you're either,
variant.
yeah, it's just a armor variant, and it's a variant of the ghost armor. So it looks pretty cool.
Nice.
Yeah, yeah. So it was fun. You know, I think the only thing I'll say about the DLC is that if you're into the story, it's more of the same gameplay for the most part. They added different elements of what you can do with your horse. You can like charge through enemies now, which is cool. You can kind of
Yeah.
just like blast through them. But you go to Icky Island, which is mentioned a few times in the main game. But I never really understood what it was or its importance. And you quickly find out like that is where your father died. Like through the flashbacks, three or four times throughout the game, it shows
Yeah.
you hiding in a hut as like a teenager,
Yeah, and you didn't
watching
do
your,
anything.
yeah, and you didn't do anything. Your dad calls out for you for help, and you're just like cowering, you're in fear in this like shack, and you watch him die, and he can't, certainly is living with that guilt right throughout it, and trying to deal with that throughout the story. Um, so you sort of explore those feelings a little bit more on Icky Island. You find out a little bit more about the backstory, why they were there, and why um, uh, they basically were trying to conquer it and basically set up this establishment there. But I'll say like the pirates, the raiders that live on that island weren't having it, and that's basically who you're fighting against. Um, and you just find out more about that story. You there's an overarching kind of storyline with the eagle, who is a tribe, another Japanese tribe or clan that has partnered up with the Mongols. They have some sort of hallucinating poison that they give you, and that's how you experience a lot of these, past memories and those sorts of things. It's really cool. It's really cool. The enemies are harder. The eagle who you end up fighting at the end is the hardest boss in the entire game if you play through, even
Oh,
more than
nice.
the Khan. But it's really cool, man. I definitely recommend it if you have access to it to give it a try.
Yeah, I'll definitely have to pick it up because I don't have the director's cut. I just have the standard game. But
Give it a little while until
oh yeah, yeah, since
PS
it's
Plus
coming to
comes
the
out.
new.
I wonder how
Yep,
that would integrate with like your save file if it'll let you just go right into Icky Island.
I think so. Like I think it would just recognize it as the DLC's downloaded, but
Yeah, I hope so. That way you don't have to play
we'll
through half
see.
the game to unlock it.
Yeah. Oh no, that's one that I think that at some point I really would like to replay anyway. So if I had to experience it, I would replay it. Um, so that's basically the story, and I just wanted to make mention that I didn't recount all of this myself, and I pulled the complete story from uh, the reviewgeek.com. He did a good rundown of like the complete story, which is what we kind of used to kind of bounce off of to get an idea of what was going on in the story at certain times because it's a pretty lengthy story. I couldn't remember all the beats uh, that happened with it at that time. But yeah, so we'll put the story to bed for a little bit, and we'll let I'll remember to put the timestamp in so you guys can come back and join for the gameplay portion if that's what you guys like. we'll talk a little bit about. I just threw some quick notes in here, just kind of outlining the
Hmm.
basics, and we can kind of walk through them and explain them and talk about our experiences with those as well. So first off, we could talk about the just the open world and like uh, quests, I guess, a little bit. We already kind of like touched on those, but uh, like it's set out just kind of the way that we were talking about. Each act kind of opens up a whole nother portion of it. Um, the Depending on what kind of quest it is, what color it is, and whether you have to do it or not. There's so many quests, and like some of the things. Sometimes the quests give you the pieces you need for an upgrade. Sometimes it's a life increase, like health increase.
Yep.
Just all kinds of things. You'll just be traversing the map and you'll see a gold bird, and you're like, the first time you see that, you're like, oh, what's going on? And follow it, and it takes you somewhere.
Yep.
There's lots of things like that. You know, you'll hit a map and you'll see the fox or whatever, and it'll take you to the little fox den shrine. And I didn't even do. I don't think I did all of the what they call those. It's like where you had to do the climbing to get to
Oh,
the top.
the shrines.
Yeah, the actual shrines.
Yeah, yeah, shrines. Yeah, it was cool. I think obviously you've got the little bases, right, that you find on the map, and each of the three sections have a number that you need to defeat, so you can quote unquote liberate that section. But as you're exploring, right, like you said, you've got the Inari shrines, which are the little foxes, um, and if you find those, you can unlock additional charm slots, and the charms
Yes.
give you like buffs, whether it's extra defense or and they even have like major and minor slots eventually. The more that you get, I think you get like two major slots and four minor slots eventually.
Yep.
And obviously the major charms will be stronger buffs. Like I used one, I think, for the whole game that was like, if you're out of combat, you'll auto regenerate health.
Yep.
And there was another one that gave you a boost to the collectibles. Like you got more like pelts from the animals and more supplies whenever you would find pickups throughout the game. But yeah, the other ones were pretty cool. Some of them, if you wanted to be more focused on archery, you'd have like more like time slow down. Um, you know,
You could have faster knocking of your arrow
yep, faster
after each shot,
knocking. You could
more damage.
yep. Resolve bonuses, and resolve in the game was like how you were able to do some special attacks that you eventually unlocked through different story beats,
It's
where you
also a
do
way
like a
to
yeah.
regenerate your health if you're
Yep.
low on health.
Yeah, so really you can customize your character depending on how you want to play. Like we didn't even talk about the whole stealth aspect of it, and I think we mentioned it a little bit a while ago about like shooting
Yeah.
poison darts and that kind of stuff. But you've got two blades, you've got your katana, and then you have your, I don't remember what the short blade was, but basically
Uh,
it was the one you use
yeah.
to assassinate folks. There is, you could play this game completely stealthy, or you can play it, go in there guns ablazing, right? It's sort of however you want to play, and different areas certainly um, wanted you to play one way or the other, but you were never forced into
No.
combat where you didn't want to be in combat for the most part.
Yeah, and I mean, uh, we could talk a little bit about the sword fights, like just some different, uh, like you could stand off with enemies when you first entered into a town or whatever that was taken over by the Mongols.
Yep.
You could call somebody out, and there was even part of your skill tree that would allow you to like one shot kill more people like in a row if you
Yep.
win a standoff, which was kind of cool. I didn't do standoff a whole lot. I did at the beginning because I felt like it was like something you had to do.
Yes.
But slowly, as like you start learning the stealth skills and stuff, like I would just enter a place and take out like all the guards and stuff and make my way in. I didn't really worry about standing off too much.
Yeah. At one point, you get armor that gives you, you can go up to 5 standoff kill streaks, 5 kills in a row. So
Yeah,
I started using standoff a little bit more at that point.
yeah,
Um,
you can definitely start cleaning house pretty good with it right off the
yeah.
bat.
And with the standoffs, it was cool too. Like if you see one of the more difficult enemies, if you focus on them and you initiate the standoff, like you'll guarantee that you'd fight that more difficult enemy first and be able to one shot kill him as opposed to,
Yeah,
general combat out of that, which I thought was pretty cool.
yeah, and then you had like it wasn't a standoff, but it was another kind of battle or mechanic where like if it's one of the like general type soldiers, the harder guys you were
Oh,
talking
like the
about.
leaders, like the
Yeah,
camp
you could
leaders
do
or
the
something.
leader where if like, you snuck up on them, you could do the deal where like basically just severed their head and it filled up
Oh, yes. That
your
was
whole meter.
badass.
Yeah,
The first time you do that, you're like, oh, well, that guy has no more head.
yeah,
And
like
and your ghost meter is full.
yeah, you
Yeah, that was
definitely
cool.
you don't realize how graphic the game is when you first get into it, but as you're going
It
on, like you're just
yeah.
slaughtering like left and right. It almost has like that God of War feel. Like enemies mean nothing after a while. Like you're just mowing through them.
Yes. Yeah. And even early on in the game, I know you've got it in the notes here, but the different stances, I thought that even though the combat eventually could get so I don't want to say necessarily easy, but you definitely feel overpowered if you know what you're doing. But part of what you need to know what to do is depending on the type of enemy that you're fighting, whether it's a sword or a shield enemy, um,
Or
or
the
what
two swords
or two swords or a spear or an
spear.
axe or like a brute, like a big dude. Um, you have different stances that are more effective against each type of enemy, and these enemies aren't waiting for you to kind of fight one by one outside of the standoff. So as you're kind of going around the camp or whatever combat you're in, you have to know like, okay, well I'm fighting a sword guy, so quickly switch to whatever that stance was, and like, oh, okay, here's a shield guy, so I'm going to switch stances here.
It does
And then
kind of like slow time a little bit when you go to switch your stance. So you do
it
have a little
does.
bit of
You have a
grace there.
little bit of leeway there. Um, but
I
I
would
thought that was really
constantly
cool.
think that I switched and I hadn't switched. Like I would hit the button and it didn't register sometimes when I was in
Yeah,
the heat of combat. So I'd be trying to fight a shield guy and like
like
he's
why aren't
just
my strong attacks going
yeah,
through? Yeah.
blocking everything that I'm doing. I'm like, oh wait a minute, I'm still on the lance or whatever, the spear
Did
combat.
the remind me because I know they definitely had it in the expansion, but towards the end of the game, did they have some enemies that had multiple weapons, so they would switch too? Like they might switch to a shield and a sword, or
I
like
don't think
two
so.
swords.
Or at least
They
I don't.
they
I don't
introduced
remember
that in Icky
encountering.
Island though, and
Oh,
that was
nice.
that was really cool. So it like
So you
you
had to
know
change with them.
you had to change with them, which was pretty neat. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, the I put a little bit in here about secondary weapons, which I consider to be like your uh, gunpowder bombs and your kunai and
Yeah.
just some different things that you had. Uh, there was a wind chime you could throw out to distract enemies, and there was
Yes. Yep.
like
That was cool. A
uh,
firecracker.
firecrackers. Like there's all kind of the sticky bombs. You could turn your normal like gunpowder type deal into like the sticky ones that stick to the enemies, and then they would run around and like it would take out a whole group of guys. Like
Yeah,
it
that
was
was
pretty
cool.
cool.
I like the kunai. I think that was my
Yeah,
favorite.
I did too. I
Um,
used it all the time, and it was also the easiest one to replenish. It seemed like.
yes, yeah, and you end up getting. I think you end up getting to like 5 by the end, or
Yeah,
once it was all the way upgraded. So that was great to like help stagger like a group of enemies because you would throw out like 3 or 4 of them,
yep,
and you would stagger a bunch if you can angle it right. Um, but
yeah. It
yeah,
was pretty.
even
It was
yeah, it
super
was
nice.
awesome, man. And you could really play whatever way you wanted to. Like if you liked the smoke bombs better, like you can mostly do smoke bombs. Like I was a kunai guy, so that was sort of my default. And then if I ran out of that, I would switch to something else. But it was cool.
Yeah, and I mean that's even a totally different. We haven't mentioned even yet that you can use a bow in the game, other
Yeah,
than just the charms. I used the bow quite a bit. Like
me too.
it was pretty. It was pretty. Like it reminded me of like how Breath of the Wild works, where like it's quick action. You just whip the bow out and use it real quick. put it away. I would even use it in close combat sometimes, just depending on, if the guy was more than like 5 or 10 steps away, and it was easier for me to just shoot an arrow at him from that distance, so that
Yeah.
I could go into another direction with my combat. I would just peg off a straggler with the bow,
Yeah, definitely.
and then just move the other direction if he was the only guy over there. Because I mean, headshots matter. Like basically, just as long as
Oh
you get a
yeah.
good headshot, you're pretty much taking them out. In fact, I think there's a couple charms that increase headshot damage too, if
I
I
think you're
remember
right.
right.
Yeah.
I
And
built
there's
my guy for bow for the most part.
sorry, what was that?
I said I built my guy for bow.
Built your guy
So
for bow.
yeah,
Nice. Yeah. Yeah, no, that's awesome. And they had the long bow and the short bow too for different situations. I
yep,
definitely played with the short bow a lot more. It's the first one you get, and for the
yeah,
most part, it's a lot faster, not as
yep.
strong, but especially for those close combat scenarios, short bow was where it was at. But long bow was cool if you were trying to like snipe from long distance and stuff, and different types of arrows, like explosive arrows,
A lot of
with the
times
long bow.
the game didn't really cater to sniping because like you'd be alerting a large
Yes,
group of dudes
you'd shoot
exactly
one or
where you
two
were.
guys, and you'd see just like a crowd of guys like running towards
Yeah,
you, like, oh, they're nowhere.
yeah,
Yeah,
yep,
that didn't work out so well.
yeah. So then you like, I guess you could set up a system where like you could snipe off a few people, use a smoke bomb,
Yeah,
get your
and go
stealth
hide.
back, find grass, and like just keep doing that. But yeah, I like the short bow definitely as well because I could fire off a bunch. Like I had mine sets where I had like 2 or 3 charms to increase knock speed, so I could
Oh,
just
nice.
quick fire them out of there. Yeah, they definitely. There's all kinds of options and all kinds of ways to play the game. That's for sure. Like you don't get stuck, and you can do plenty. Like none of the charms are permanent, so like you can constantly swap out. Like if you get tired of playing a certain build, you can just start swapping out charms and find something you like. Let's see. Um, so we talked a little bit about side quests and the characters. So we'll skip over that. We talked about the skills and upgrades. We talked a little bit about the ghost mechanic. Uh, so basically, you fill up a gauge and then you unleash a combat skill that allows you to kill particular enemies with one hit.
Yep.
And I think is there a way to increase it, or do you just get 3?
I think you just get three. The upgrade with the different armor sets, which is another cool fact, right? The different types of armor sets give you different bonuses, whether it's like archery or the
Yeah,
ghost armor in particular. With this topic, I think it reduces the amount of kills in a row you have to get to trigger the
yeah,
ghost skill.
but you always get 3. That's what I
You
was
always get
thinking.
3 kills if you do it within a certain amount of time. I think if you wait like 30
Yeah, if
seconds
you
or
wait,
something without a
yeah,
kill, it'll go away.
yep. I thought that was pretty cool. And like you said, the first time you do it, you're like, oh, this is awesome. He's
Like
kind of like
next
chop
level.
that guy's head off, and you become the ghost.
Oh my! Everything about the game changes for a second. Like everything slows down. You said before, like guys like cower in
Oh
fear,
yeah,
and it's just like you can tell, and like the whole art direction like just changes. It like turns like red and black. I think
yeah.
for a second there, and yeah, it's
But
you are OP. It's
even
awesome.
towards the last act of the game, if you're in like a big group of guys and you've killed like 3 or 4 guys like by normal means, you'll have people starting to cower away. Like they do a
Yep.
good job at with the AI, like setting that up. Like they're legitimately scared after a little
Yes.
while.
Yeah. Definitely.
They'll just
It's really
start
cool the
backing
way
up.
they build that out.
And then something else we didn't mention too is uh, the ability. Sometimes you'll think you've killed an enemy, but really he's just kind of like laying on the ground, and you have the ability to like finish him off to get some
End
extra,
suffering.
yeah, in
Yes.
suffering to get some resolve and things.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty. The combat's just super fluid. And that's the the strong part of the game. The story is really good, but if it wasn't for the combat, I don't think it would have went over as good as it did. I mean, it did
Yep.
win Game of the Year.
Yeah. Perfect.
Uh,
Hand in hand. The story and combat were both top notch.
yes, and I mean, I think the last. Well, we didn't talk about the guiding wind, which I didn't use a whole lot towards the end of the game.
I did only because I was trying to get everything and
Yeah.
100%. So I had to get everything except all the pillars of honor. The way that the game worked, you didn't have to collect like everything. There's some collectibles in the game where there's like 80 banners or something like that. You only had to
Oh,
collect like
geez.
20 of them. Or like different records, like Mongol records or artifacts, or um, that you only had to collect like half. So you could set your guiding wind, which is basically like the compass. It
Yep.
doesn't tell you necessarily how far things are away unless you can see that icon on the map. Like maybe there was a mission, a side mission you passed by earlier on, and you're like, okay, well, I want to go back and do that side mission. You know that you're like 200 meters away from there. But if you just set it on, hey, I want to find the closest like Inari shrine, little fox shrine thing, it would just literally you would swipe up on the gamepad and
Touchpad.
wind, yeah, the
Yep.
touchpad, um, sorry, and the wind would show up in the game, and you would just literally have to follow the wind. And
Yeah,
on
the leaves, kind of
blue,
bustling around, and yeah,
yeah, oh, it was so
it was
cool.
not, it was cool.
And even on, I don't know if it did it on the PS4 controller, but on the PS5, it like made a little like wind sound coming out of the controller.
I I don't know if the PS4 has a speaker in the
Yeah,
controller.
I don't know if it does or not, but like even when you do that, it would be cool. Um,
No, it does. Yeah,
yeah.
it definitely. I don't remember, but again, I don't know. Oh, I was playing with my headphones on, so maybe my controller was making the sound and I never
Oh, you
noticed.
never knew. Oh, okay. Yeah, that could be it. Um,
Oh
but yeah,
yeah,
no, that controller was cool. Even when we were talking about arrows, shooting arrows before, like when you're like knocking back an arrow, and like depending on how fast you would do it, the haptics would give you some feedback there, and it
nice.
was it was really cool. You're galloping on your horse, and you would be going over like grass, and then you would ride over a wooden bridge, and then you would ride over like some rocks, and everything would feel different. It was really awesome.
Yeah, how many times did you like jump your horse off a cliff that was way too high and you would just like eat it and you're like,
Yeah, you're like, oh man, yeah,
oh
because
man,
your
no.
horse would like eat it, and then you would die like inevitably.
Yeah,
Like, oh crap. Um, but yeah, no, that was super fun. But yeah, the guiding wind was definitely useful if you're trying to go for a platinum in this one.
and then the last thing I have on here is the that we didn't talk about yet was the legend, which is basically how you gain your skill points. There's a gauge. It basically just looks like a shadowy figure of Jin, and it has like it fills up from his feet up to his head, and then that every time you gain, well, you gain skill points per uh, legend level, and like as you're going up, you're filling in the little circles that give you the skill points, and then
Yep.
when you go to the next level, you get a new set that you can acquire. Which I think that by the time I beat the game, I'd pretty much maxed out all my skills except for the guiding wind skills
Yeah.
because I
Yeah,
really
that makes
wasn't
sense.
using them all that much.
Yeah, if you're not going to use it, it doesn't really make sense to. But
Yeah,
yeah, they
but like
certainly
I,
give you enough. And especially if you like using like the kunai or like the smoke bombs or whatever, there's different like tiers of power ups you can apply, and different skill points you can apply to each one of those weapons. So if you like one weapon over another, you can sort of prioritize upgrading that one first, which is pretty cool and adds to the customization and all that.
oh yeah, no, that was the cool part. The so many skills, like you can upgrade each stance several times to where your heavy attacks do different things. Like you might stagger upon a heavy attack.
Yeah,
Um,
like a spin move with one of them.
Spin move, yeah, like there's all kinds of things. I think there's a skill that you can upgrade for parrying, or like one of them was like automatic parry with the spear or pole arm
Yep.
stance, which is nice because those guys will come in and like you don't even
Those guys, yeah, gave me the hardest time, especially early on in the game. The poles and the spears were
yeah, because
difficult.
you begin attacked by them, you can't even see them on the screen because they're behind you and like they reach so far. So
Yeah,
yeah, the
seriously.
automatic parry was pretty nice. Like if you're pointing that direction, uh, yeah. So basically, you get, which I don't think I even maxed out my legend level, so
You
I'm not
did you ever
100% sure.
so you did not become the ghost of Tsushima.
I
That's
don't
sort of
believe
the last
so.
one. Yeah,
Oh
there you
yeah,
go.
that is right. That's the last
the last
rank.
level. Yeah.
I don't believe I did. I think I made it to like the second to last.
Yeah, I mean, if you didn't do all the side stuff, like
Yeah,
it gives you plenty because each one of like the little camps you have to take out, it'll give you the main objective, like um, beat the leader and free the captives, or like blow this up or whatever. But it'll
it,
give you like an extra one, like okay, like kill two enemies with the
yeah,
hallucination dart or that kind
yeah.
of stuff,
I
and
did
it'll
all
give
the
you
extra bonus ones that I could.
yeah, yeah. So if
Uh,
you do a lot of those, it'll help, you know, increase your legend. But even like the random like road encounters with like 5 or 6 guys, and if you save somebody there, that'll increase your legend too, which is pretty cool.
nice. Um, Something I was thinking, I forgot. I think I didn't even go after all of the special, like the elite skills or whatever. Like the one that I did have was the flame sword,
Oh yeah.
and then there was a couple other ones, but I don't even know what they were. Do you remember? Did you get all those?
The yeah, I did because I think some of them were unlocked between behind some of those side missions. Or the oh we didn't even talk about the blue missions. The oh gosh, not the
The
tails.
the ones that
Maybe it was the Tales of
the
Tsushima.
tails, yeah, the
Yeah.
tails where you had to talk to the story writer or whatever
Yes.
storyteller.
You had to talk to the story writer, and you'd either get like a special move that would use resolve, like your sort of your special meter,
Yep.
or you would get like a pretty cool like armor set or something like that. But yeah, one of the special moves you would hit triangle and then circle, I think triangle then circle, and it would do like a dash attack with a slash that was unblockable.
Oh,
Um, a-
nice.
and then another one was I forget the button combination, but basically you would put it in. It would use 2 or 3 resolve, and you would just dash to the 3 closest enemies. Or if there was one enemy that was super strong, you would like hit him twice and then dash over to another one.
Oh,
So
nice.
yeah, that was really cool and very very helpful for some of the duels. You can use those moves in the duels as well at the end
Yeah,
of the game for the one-on-one battles.
I think the only one that I got was the flame sword, and I think I unlocked it like right before the last battle.
You get that one super late in the game. That's like the last thing you're waiting
Yeah,
for.
that was the only one I got. And I think I just stumbled upon the storyteller and did it real quick. That was a pretty tough one, like going up the mountain.
Yeah, yeah, that one was not easy. You had and there's nothing else in the game that was kind of like that. For that one, you had to
No,
like scale a mountain and get to different bonfires and not freeze.
yeah,
Yeah,
that was kind of it was pretty cool. Like I wasn't expecting that, and then there was like it was pretty straightforward. Like find the fire and then head that direction, and go through the obstacles. And then there was like one where the path splits like three ways, and you had to figure out which way led you to a fire. So like I'd make it like halfway, and I'm like, there's no fire in this direction. Got to get back to the last one.
yeah, yeah. We talked earlier about how some of like the platforming is very smooth, and it certainly is, but it's not quite as smooth when you don't know where you're going. So
Exactly. Yeah,
yeah,
and when you're cold, you're not very like you start losing the
yeah,
ability to move very
visibility.
fast. Yeah,
Yeah,
you lose visibility and you don't move very quick. Like your guy's
yep,
freezing to death. So that was kind of interesting. Yeah, I think we've exhausted gameplay. Uh, it's all the things I could think of.
yeah,
We've pretty much went through all of it. As usual, I pulled some fun facts. There actually was quite a few fun facts about the game. Sucker Punch actually hired real samurai to create the fights in the game. So like all of the choreography for the fights was done by actual samurai, and then they just kind of put it to the game. It's pretty neat. The leaves that were in the game were from actual snapshots of real leaves in Tsushima, and then they just
that's awesome.
rendered them in the game. And there's like
So
tons
beautiful.
of different leaves in that in that game.
Yeah.
So I can only imagine that whoever had that job was like, take a picture of a leaf, scan it in.
It was
Uh,
worth it. It was worth it. Lead leaf designer, whoever you are out there.
yes. And then playing the flute in the game can change the weather. Um,
I did not
which
know
is,
that. That's
yeah, I
pretty
didn't know
cool.
that one either. And I never did really. The only time I played the flute was like whenever it made you play it, like a
Yeah.
couple times. And then we also didn't talk about the haiku. I
Oh
forgot
yeah,
about that. Yeah, where you
that
would
was probably
like,
the worst side mission, just because it was
yeah,
somewhat boring. But
it
at the
is.
same time, you got to view like that beautiful landscape, whether you were like at a lake or in a
Yeah,
mountain or
I liked, they used the same mechanic when you would scout a base, and I liked that a lot better.
yeah. No, that's fair. The one thing about the PS5 controller is that like that singing that happened during the haiku,
It's
it was
really
like right out
loud.
of the controller. It was like
Oh,
right in your
geez.
face. So even
Yeah.
if I was playing it quiet, late at night, I'm like, oh my god, controller, like shut up with the singing.
Yeah, you're loud. It's
You're
like the old
super
Wii
loud right now. You're
speaker.
gonna wake up the house.
And also there was some Sly Cooper and infamous Easter eggs in the game, such as equipment, and there was also a Bloodborne and God of War themed armor that were part of the Icky Island DLC, which looked
Yeah,
pretty neat. I saw some pictures of them.
it was really cool. I played with the God of War armor for a bit. It's pretty badass.
Did did you ever put together the pieces to create the Sly Cooper armor? It was like a
I did.
certain. Was
I
it pretty
did.
neat?
Yeah, I did have to look up a guide on how to do that. It was like one of the last trophies that I needed, but I'm like, let's just throw it together because I want to platinum this.
Nice, awesome. Uh, Something that I didn't even think about on this next one, because I always killed the eagle when I
Yes, if
spotted
I
them.
could kill the eagle, I definitely tried to. Damn
Yes.
scouts.
So yeah, if you kill a Mongol that has an eagle without killing the eagle, if you wait a little while, it will come back and it will mourn the guy that you killed. Which I don't
That's
remember
pretty
seeing
cool.
that because, like
I
I
didn't
said,
see that either.
I always killed the eagle. Even if he tried to escape, I'd shoot him with an arrow.
Sorry, eagle. You got to
Yep,
go.
yep. I didn't want him bringing back more guys because I didn't know if he would or not. Maybe he's a
Yeah,
scout eagle,
exactly.
but apparently it will just take off if you don't kill it and you kill its guy. So you don't have to worry about that. Uh, and then there was also some PS4 heritage Easter eggs at the end of the game uh, that were made out like they were origami pieces of paper on the little bench, the workbench that was at the in the little camp that you're set up at the end of the game after you beat and everything. And it was like I remember seeing this at the time and not putting it together, and then I saw a picture of it afterwards, and I was like, "Oh, that's what that was."
Yeah, it makes sense now. Yeah, I did the
Yeah, I
same
was
thing.
like little Gran Turismo car and the God of War hammer or the axe, and then the guitar for Last of Us. There was like all kinds of little, whenever I first saw it, I was like, "Oh, origami, cool."
Yeah.
uh, and then, so yeah, this is coming to the PS Plus service in June. So if anybody that has PS Plus, you guys can hop in and play it at some point. So don't go out and buy it if you already have
Yeah,
the
give it
service.
another month. You'll be able to play it
Yep.
if you're gonna be a PS Plus subscriber.
Yep. And I definitely plan on signing up. I haven't had my PS Plus membership in a long time. I haven't played any games online. Haven't uh, just really haven't played my PlayStation as much as I used to. The Switch kind of was the PlayStation killer for me. Like made it to where I could play on the go. Um, I do miss playing some of the games that are only on PlayStation. Like that's why I finally bought a PS5. It took me a year to find one, uh, I don't think I've played it more than a handful of times. I started playing Valhalla on there, but
Yep.
haven't didn't make it very far.
I
I'm
see why.
not liking it
Yeah.
as much. I played
Yeah.
all the way through Odyssey and loved it, and then this game's just kind of like I bounced off of it. I just
Yeah.
wasn't feeling it.
I can't blame you. It's a long game.
Yeah, maybe I'm good for like one Assassin's Creed game every like 10 years. Will be okay because I
Yeah,
think I
space
played
it out.
four. Uh, yeah, no, definitely need to give my PS5 some more playtime. I did get Horizon Forbidden West, but I haven't got to it yet.
Nice.
That's gonna be next whenever I have some time when I'm not playing games for this or playing. It seems like I'm always playing games for to write about something or record something or do something. But
You're just
definitely
going
need to
to
find some
have
more.
another on topic modern with
Yep.
Horizon in a few months whenever you finish that up.
Yeah, I know some people to call next time too for that. So we'll
Yeah,
definitely have to give
definitely.
it a shake. Um, I think the next one that I will, in reality, will probably do would probably be on Xenoblade 3 when it comes out. I'm pretty
Oh, yeah.
excited for that game.
Nice.
Uh, but yeah, that's basically it. I know we're gonna get into the outro, and I know you do a little bit of streaming. So if you want to go ahead and kind of promote your brand and tell everybody about it.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks, John. Yeah, you can find me on Twitter and on Twitch on Wednesday and Sunday nights around 9 o'clock Eastern. I'm at Hambone Johnny, doing a playthrough of Super Mario Galaxy 2 right now. Coming up to the end of that, collecting the last few green stars, and I'm going to give
Nice,
a go at the kind of the final finale galaxy or whatever it is. So that'll be happening at some point in the next few weeks. But yeah,
cool,
come hang out. We just like to have a good time out there.
awesome. Yeah, definitely. I know you were there for a little while. You were doing the tour de podcast.
Yes, yes,
So definitely, I'm sure that most people that are listening to this are familiar, and definitely now know that they can go check out your streaming.
yeah. Thanks, man.
Yeah. So the next episode of On Topic Retro will actually be on a retro game, and it'll be another retro rewind edition of the show, and it'll be for Earthworm Jim 2. There's still let's see. Yeah, there'll still be another week. So it'll be a little bit over a week. I think we'll record that next Wednesday. So definitely have some time to play it if you haven't played it yet. Um, and if you want to join us for that show, fill out the uh, Retro Rewind review form that I've put in the Discord at Retrologic Discord and Nintendo Dad's Discord. Fill that out. And if you want to come on the show, you're definitely more than welcome. Come talk some Earthworm Jim 2. I think we're going to have like our first show where everybody's kind of, this is an okay game. It's not as good as you remember, but we're definitely going to talk about it because there's all kinds of cool things that are going on in that game. And so this is, let's see. I think this will be the last NSO Retro Rewind. The next week's will be one that I get to choose out of like a random set of games that are reasonably priced, which I'm pretty excited for. I'm going to put together a good list of games for everybody to choose from, and if you don't have it, you can go pick it up because it'll be affordable. Retro Rewind.
That sounds great, man. Looking forward to it.
Yeah. So that's it. Thanks for listening to On Topic Retro, or in this case, On Topic Modern. It's a part of the Retrologic family of podcasts. If you'd like to send in your personal experiences for the next show but don't have Discord, please send them to ontopicretro@gmail.com. And I will pull those out and put them in the show notes and read them on the show. If you haven't joined the wonderful non-toxic Retrologic Discord and would like to, visit retrologic.games for details on how to join. It's absolutely free. We don't charge anything. You can come hang out with the coolest people I know, talk games, talk movies, music, food. Like, I don't think there's not really any taboo topics. People pretty much just talk about whatever they feel like. And that's it. That's it for this episode. Thanks again, Johnny, for coming to hang out with me. And stay tuned for more, and we'll get out of here. See you guys later.
See ya.
Awesome.
Yeah, man, that was fun.